All right, folks, thank you for coming to my talk today. The future is humans, not machines. A few housekeeping notes before I kind of go into the actual presentation. This is pre-recorded in my super cool home studio. So unfortunately, I will not be live at GRIMMCon. I have other engagements, prior engagements with customers. So I won't be able to answer questions live. It does give me the benefit of kind of relaxing and taking as many takes as I need to nail this. But please do, if you have questions, feedback, I'm going to have my socials on the next slide. I love discussion. Feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you about what I talked about, get your feedback, or anything. Really, we can just chat. So, a little bit about me. My name is Dan Tyrell. My current job is I'm the manager of professional services at Cobalt.io or Cobalt Labs. You may have heard of either way. And we're a pen test as a service company. My background actually isn't in kind of this consulting professional services space. It's actually in the practitioner leadership side. Previously head of information security for a fintech company. I've been a director of information security. I worked at an MSSP as a lead solutions engineer and a few other, more junior titles, but those are the impressive ones that kind of give me the speaker clout, so to speak. Other qualifications, I have certifications, I promise. There's nothing too extensive. I don't have the alphabet soup kind of thing going on, but I have, I have a few, and I also have the experience. Some other things about me, I'm a nerd. I love comic books. I love reading fantasy novels. I love all those movies, the Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, etc. I didn't really know how to put in here. I love things that go fast. I love race cars and motorsport. I love roller coasters, and just I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie in that regard. I'm also a father, which is the greatest job in the world, and a husband, right? So 2 little girls and a beautiful wife. So I very much enjoy spending my time with them. If you want to reach out to me, as I alluded to, I do love discussion and I love being part of the community. My Twitter handle's there. It's at BitwiseDan. LinkedIn, just look me up, Dan Tyrell. You know where I work. You should be pretty easy to find me. Before we go all the way kind of down the rabbit hole, I want to give a little bit of background on what this talk is. In the end, my goal isn't to tell you what you should think. It's to explain to you how I came to the conclusion I came to, and hopefully get you thinking about how you think about this, right? Is the future of information security humans, or is it tools and machines and new technologies? And I think we know my stance on it. But again, I'd love to hear yours. And really what I want to take you through is how I came to my conclusion, like I said, and I really want to kind of emphasize that, because if at times the process seems disjointed, my slides seem disjointed, you ask, Dan, how did you get from there to there? It's just how my mind works, right? And I'm showing you that thought process, and hopefully in doing so, again, I'm getting you to think, I'm getting you to have these discussions in this discourse. So I want to start at the end. I want to start at the conclusion, right? I think it's a little bit more nuanced than humans are the answer, right? I'm not saying machines aren't the answer. My conclusion, what I came to through this process, through this journey of thinking about this, is that machines and new technologies are important, but at the end of the day, an appropriate quantity and quality of human beings are required to have adequate cybersecurity. I don't think that's crazy. It's pretty pragmatic. It makes sense, I think, to me, right? Again, let me know. And you'll see there, this was said by me today at this conference. So let's go back to the beginning. We started at the end. Let's go back to the beginning. And I know we have these conversations daily. I've seen them on Twitter. I've seen them on LinkedIn. I've seen them in Discord groups. I've had them with colleagues back when we could be around the water cooler. But you might be saying, Dan, we're at a conference. How did you end up going down this rabbit hole? And like all good things, it started with an argument. So it wasn't really an argument. It was a lively discussion between myself and a good friend of mine. The type of friend that you meet in the industry and your career paths kind of split, but you respect each other a ton and you stay in touch, and you're friends. It's not just the working relationship. You text each other constantly. So so I guess I'm giving that background because this is a friend who's in the industry. It's a friend who I talk to about this stuff a lot, right? And he got a new job working for a pretty cool company, it sounded like. And I'm not doing advertisements for anyone here, so I'm not going to name the company, but it seems like they're doing some pretty cool things. They're a startup. He's kind of like a lead architect, senior architect, solutions architect, right? So he's kind of on the sales engineering, sales architecture side of things. And as most things go, coming from the practitioner side of things, I get very skeptical, and I ask a lot of questions about the solution. So he said to me, he's like, look, eventually this conversation came to a place where he said, look, the problem isn't the amount of people or the quality of people, the quantity and quality, right? He's like, it's the tools. The tools suck. We don't have enough data. We need more tools, more widgets, more boxes with blinky lights. And I said, I hear you, but I think it's actually the other way around. I think it's people. Like, we have tons of good tools. We have a lot of good stuff, but we need the people. And he came back and he said, yeah, I hear you, but it's the tools. And, he gave his reasons, and I came back and I said, oh, I hear you, but it's people. And it kind of reminds me of this GIF here from Schitt's Creek. It's tort, it's a cake, it's a tort, it's a cake. The conversation just kind of went like that for way too long. So I started on self-reflection. And this is what I mean about non sequiturs and like, Dan, how did you get there? So I started down this path of like, okay, maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe it isn't people. Maybe it is nuanced. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is tools. Maybe we just need more tools. We need AI. We need machine learning. We need neural nets and quantum computing. Like that's all stuff we need. That's going to take care of all the problems in security. And so what I often do is I think historically. And I like to think historically, and I like to think outside of the context of the industry I'm in. And I came to textiles, and it's weird, right? How did you get to textiles? If you look at the colorized photo on the right, it's a city, a small city in Massachusetts called Fall River. Fall River is where I was born and grew up. And Fall River more recently is not known for great things, high crime rates, not best schools, an ex-mayor who's been indicted by the federal government, that type of thing, not great press. More classically or historically, Fall River is known for two major things. One is the Lizzie Borden murders. So I guess the city kind of started off their kind of history of bad news early. If you don't know about those murders, pretty gruesome stuff. Definitely, go check it out. There's been documentaries and movies made on it. It's pretty interesting to live in a city where you kind of have that kind of grim tourism aspect to it. No pun intended. I know it's GRIMMCon. And then the other thing is textiles, right? Which is weird. So Fall River was the leading textile manufacturer in America for a period of time. And they also at one point in time were the second largest textile manufacturer on the planet. And textiles actually continue to run through the blood in Fall River a little bit, in that it's not the major industry, but there's still a lot of things like leading yarn dyeing companies in Fall River. Just found that out today, actually. People bring their alpaca wool to Fall River, and that type of thing. But what happened is, back in the early days, right around kind of the founding and early days of Fall River becoming this textile manufacturing hub, the first automatic bobbin changing weaving loom is introduced, right? And this was like a huge automation change in the textile industry. And it set off actually a century of kind of innovation in the textile industry. But there was this weird timing where this came out. Fall River was moving into this textile industry, and it exploded. This tiny little city in Massachusetts went to the world stage and was the second largest textile manufacturer for a period of about 30 or 40 years. And the reason I came to this is I was thinking about how much automation changed that industry, and how these new tools, these automatic bobbin changing weaving looms, allowed for this explosion, right? And I was like, okay, yeah, machines. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to be talking about this at a conference, and everyone's going to be really confused at this juncture and be asking like, how again, Dan, why textiles? So I thought about transportation, right? This is an easy one. Horses were the primary mode of transportation in the early 1900s. It continued to be common, horse and buggy type thing, all the way up until about the 40s. But it really started to be phased out and replaced with cars when the Model T was introduced. So again, just a more, I guess, a more common or more easy to connect, me thinking about how machines have changed things, right, and innovated outside of the information security industry, more kind of historical context type things, right? And we can look at 1,000 things in the Industrial Revolution. These are just kind of the two my brain went to. But then I started thinking even more, and I was like, hey, that's not the whole story around either of those things. So, you know, Fall River, it wasn't just these automatic looms. Fall River's on a harbor. It's on the Taunton River, which is actually basically it's basically the Mount Hope Bay. If you're familiar with kind of the geography of Newport, Rhode Island, and the Mount Hope Bay, and it kind of feeds all into that river. So they had a harbor. They had the ability to get these textiles on boats up the river and out. And when I say a river, I mean like not your little river. It's a big river. You could go across a pretty long bridge to get across this river. And at the same time, they had this massive influx of immigrants. So they had people who could run these machines, service these machines, and really, you know, make these machines as effective as possible. So okay, now we're coming back towards Dan's humans theory, right? Where humans are important. You know, Fall River didn't become a textile juggernaut just because of automation. Yeah, the tools were great and new, but it required kind of process and it required people. And then I thought about the Model T. You know, it wasn't the first car. It was just the first car that was easy to sell to the middle class. And it was easy to sell to the middle class because of the cost. And they got the cost of the car down through kind of stealing from the meatpacking industry, the assembly line, right? People always think Henry Ford Model T invented the assembly line. That's not true. He actually kind of stole the concept and used it in a new way. So we went from having each car really hand-built, hand-fitted to this assembly line process, drove the price down, allowed for adoption. And, you know, by the 1920s, just as an example of an industry that was massively changed, by the 1920s, the US Postal Service had the most cars under ownership in the country, right? So they replaced the horse and buggy, the horse and wagon, with these cars and motorcycles and other things. But again, it took people, it took process along with this new technology to really drive things along. And so now we get to, we take this leap, right? So now my brain's looking at textiles, it's looking at cars, and it's saying like, oh man, I've seen a slide about this 1,000 times. And I'm sure you have too in a sales conversation about security topics. You see this beautiful synergy kind of thing. And it's like, hey, we have people, process, and technology, right? Like those are the three things. And when they work together, you're secure. And I was like, yeah, I mean, when I was a solutions engineer, I actually had a slide like this. You know, we were offering managed vulnerability management, right? And we would always say, look, our people do the scans, we have the processes in place, and we have the best technology around. And that synergistic approach is kind of what works. And I think that's what those historical things were saying. And it's really, you know, it's cheesy, but I always laugh. I love Silicon Valley and I love the conjoined triangles of success. And I always laughed at the scenes around this because it's funny because it's true, right? There's these synergy, these people, process, technology, the conjoined triangles of success. They're silly kind of management salesy speak, but they're true, right? And when things are true, they're pretty funny. So that was me thinking about the past. And then I thought about the present. I thought about my time leading information security departments. I thought about my time selling services and technologies. And I was like, we have tons of kind of instances of this today, right? Where the tool promises to fix everything, but in the end, there's a people process kind of gap there. So, you know, let me know if any of this sounds familiar to you. These are just a few off the top of my head. But hey, this new expensive tool gives us all the data in the world we could ever need. We'll never need any other data. We have full visibility, single pane of glass, perfect, beautiful. But we need to hire 3 new people to run it, and we're not going to get cleared for that. So let's buy it because we'll eventually hire those people, right? But now you're missing the people. You have this tool and you're missing people in process. Happens all the time. Hey, this widget can block any attack until it can't. There's going to be 0 days and things, and our machine learning is not 100%. It's got to be, it's got to be a little loose. So, you're going to have to do some custom tuning when you get the tool in your environment. Okay, that's more people time, more process. Are your people being used at 100% capacity? In my experience, in most information security, cybersecurity teams, yes, 110, 120% capacity, right? Hey, our box can stop any malicious insider in their tracks, but you're going to need 80 professional services hours to stand it up. It's just complicated. It'll go way smoother for you. Let's get our PS team involved, right? It's funny saying that as a manager of professional services, but at Cobalt, we don't stand anything up, right? We add value through consulting. So it's a little bit different, but I've had those instances where I've been a solutions engineer, building out a POC for a customer, and their environment's so complicated. And it's like, hey, this will work, but we recommend engineering time, right? This is a more common one that I've seen too, right? Hey, all of our tools, they can talk to each other. We're going to be able to orchestrate or automate. My brain wanted to say both words at once there. Your mundane security tasks, but it really comes down to, do you have someone on staff that understands how to write these kind of API integrations between your tools? And the answer is sometimes yes, sometimes it's no, sometimes professional services gets involved again, or whatever the case may be, right? And this is kind of a cheeky thing for me, because I used to sell SIM and kind of SIM as a service or SOC as a service. All of the above of these apply if you're buying a SIM, right? It's you need FTEs to run it. You need to tune it. You're going to probably need professional services to set it up, and you're going to need someone to write your API integrations. So SIM is the best thing ever. And so once I kind of looked at the present and saw the new tools and how they were still processing people gap, I started looking forward, right? So I had looked historically at things outside of our industry. I looked at what's going on today in our current industry, and I started to look forward. And it's clear we have problems today, and I don't think anyone would deny that. And how we solve those, it's vendors want to solve it with technology, and in a lot of, in my experience, people want to solve it with people. And these pains are felt in different ways depending on the size of the organization, right? If you're in a small organization, you feel like you don't have enough of either. You don't have enough tools to do your job, and you don't have enough people. If you start becoming like a medium-sized organization to a semi-large organization, you may be feeling it a little bit differently. You have the budget, you're buying the tools, but now you really need people, or the other way around, right? You really have the people, but now they need more tools. And then when you're an enterprise, there's just this complexity at scale that happens, right? And so while I think these things are going to continue to persist for some time, I do see a path, for change. I think we can improve a lot in these areas, but I don't really think you came to this talk to discuss the path forward. Like I said, and my intention wasn't to discuss a path forward. My intention was to discuss how I came to this realization or this thesis that humans are the future, and really kick off a conversation among us, not just about whether it's humans or technology, but maybe let's use this as a catalyst to talk about what that path forward is as information security professionals and leaders and people within the industry. But I'm going to give you 2 people-centric predictions for the future that also came to me actually some time ago. I've held these beliefs for a little bit, and I felt like going through this process, they kind of validated my kind of thesis or outcome. So the first one is that penetration testing is going to replace scanning. That's pretty bold, hot take there, Dan, spicy. I don't think it is, though. I really don't. I think that in my experience running, not all scanners, you still need vulnerability scanners. You should still look for like open source dependencies. And I don't think it's going to take care of everything. There's just some kind of like low hanging fruit stuff you need to do, but like a dynamic scanner, right? I've never gotten a ton of value out of dynamic scanners. The times I've gotten value out of dynamic scanners is when I took the dynamic scanning report and used that as a tool to do my own kind of internal pen test light. That's kind of like where I've seen the most value. Otherwise, it just seems to be like noise. And again, it takes some tuning, and it finds a vulnerability, but really it's not a vulnerability. It can't be exploited, or there's some kind of business logic there that stops it, that the scanner didn't detect, or whatever the case may be, right? And so I think that there's two ways to kind of have pen testing replace scanning. I think one is with a modern delivery model, right? I think the consultancy, ramp up time, type thing is what keeps people from scheduling more pen tests. And this is a belief, again, I've held for a while, and it's why I joined the company I'm at now. This is by no means an ad for them. It's just, they do this, right? And so I think if you use an as a service model around kind of traditional professional services, you can deliver at speed and scale, right? You just need to do things differently. You need to treat the people services like a technology service, right? You need to figure out ways to do things that way. So I think that's one way, right? If you can schedule a pen test, it costs a reasonable amount of money. You can spin it up in 24 to 48 hours, and you can have real results in real time as the pen tester finds them, and get a report at the end. Like, that's awesome. If you're doing scans quarterly, a quarterly pen test likely works out better, right? But again, it has to be affordable. It has to be fast for that to work. And then the other one is I'm seeing a lot of companies invest in internal resources. I call them offensive security resources, because I see companies invest in different ways, actual, red teams, pen testing pools, offensive security. In the banking industry, they're called all kinds of different things, global security, whatever. So like they have different names. So I'm just saying people with those particular skills to actually go and pen test and have offensive capabilities against their own organization. And the reason I think about this is like what I just said. The only time I've ever gotten value out of scans is I did a scan and then I manually touched stuff and validated and tried to break things. And that's where I got the most value out of scans. And so, automated tools are great. They're part of the process, right? But a skilled human allows you to get more coverage and greater accuracy. So that was one. The other one is I think that red teaming is going to replace penetration testing. I don't think that one's so hot of a take. If penetration testing is moving upstream and kind of replacing scanning, then why wouldn't kind of red teaming replace penetration testing? And I have a few thoughts about this. One is the tooling's getting better. You have companies like I rate Scythe very highly that have attack emulation platforms. So you can kind of have your teams using this third-party tool similar to using a third-party scanner, and kind of running these attack emulations and getting a report and being able to show that, and you have your traditional consultancies and professional services, like Scythe even has professional services around running these emulations, right? And the reason I say this is penetration testing, when I talk to customers, is very compliance driven, right? But with advanced attacks becoming more normal, it's only a matter of time before we kind of raise the stakes, raise the bar. You see it all the time in third-party vendor management. The questions are only getting harder. They're only expecting more. So customers and regulatory bodies are just going to keep raising that bar. And I think at some point soon, you're going to see them say, do you have reasonable assurance that you can defend against an advanced attack, right? Small companies can't afford this, so they'll have to rely on the specialty shops and vendors with kind of tools plus professional services to deliver this for them. And then larger companies who have their own internal teams to do this type of thing, I think eventually, again, they're going to be driven to give a third-party validation for compliance purposes. Okay, that's cool. Company XYZ, that you have an internal team that runs this stuff on a regular basis. That's similar to scanning or doing your own pen testing. We need a third-party validation to make sure you're not hiding anything, right? Trying to be sneaky about it. So those are two people-centric things I see starting to happen, and I see the industry continuing to drive that way. And so with that, we kind of started at the end, went through why I started thinking about this. We covered my thought process, which included textiles for some reason. And then we came to kind of this future state of pen testing replacing scanning and red teaming replacing pen testing. And I have a lot of other opinions, but I only have 30 minutes to talk about them. So after this whole self-reflection, I came to the conclusion that I started with, right? And it's that humans are the future, not machines. I think that machines and tooling will always be important, but you need effective people, right? You need quantity and quality people to run these tools, right? And I think about it all the time. The tool that humans use are important, but if it's an unused or ineffective tool, then it helps no one, right? If you have an axe, but you need to, scoop water or carry water around, the axe is an ineffective tool. And so again, I just want to reiterate that machines and new technologies are important, but at the end of the day, an appropriate quantity and quality of human beings are required to have adequate cybersecurity. So I hope this sparks a little bit of conversation, gets you thinking. Maybe you can go down your own road. I'd love to hear your thoughts, where your brain went on this. Again, hit me up on Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever, and we can chat more about this. And yeah, that's the end. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a blast at GRIMMCon. I hope you enjoyed the talk. And again, reach out to me. I'd love to chat some more.